The Senate has said that it would issue a warrant of arrest against the Inspector General of Police, Ibrahim Idris, if he fails to appear before an ad hoc committee investigating allegations of abuse of office leveled against him next Tuesday.
Absolutely. The IGP failed to appear before the committee on Wednesday to answer to allegations made against him by the senator representing Bauchi Central, Issa Michel. The IGP, through his lawyer, says it would be sub judice to appear before the Senate over a case that's before a competent court of law. And joining us to discuss this at this time in the studio is Chairman Committee for the Protection of People's Mandate, Nelson Ekujimi. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Now, a threat is out. The person in charge of arresting law offenders is being threatened by the Senate that he could be arrested if he doesn't obey the summons of the Senate.
Well, it's very, very unfortunate that we are in an era where people believe because they occupy exalted public office, they can trample on the Constitution. You know, ordinarily, the function of a member of the National Assembly, be it the Senate or the House of Representatives, you expect such a person to be either distinguished or honorable, to recognize that the exercise of his or her function carries a lot of responsibility. The summons or the threats from the Senate should not just be used, you know, at the slight of a button. It must be done with circumspect. It must be done with responsibility. So what the Senate is threatening now, it's, you know, it's a rehash of what happened the other time when they were summoning
Hamid Ali,
the CGS of Customs. So it has become a joke.
So you think it's just hot air? That's
honestly,
really,
it's just hot air. Yeah.
So what do you say to Alex Ezion, the IG's lawyer, who's saying it would be sub judice for him to appear before the Senate on a matter that is before a competent court of law? What do we even know about the legal implications of all of that?
Well, even the rules of the Senate states it very clearly, which they have always recognized at every point in time. Don't forget, we operate a constitutional democracy in which the three arms of government have, you know, different functions. And for the sake of justice, the responsibilities of the various arms of government is, you know, spelled out. So one expects the Senate to even respect its own rules, that when a matter is before the courts, the Senate must, you know, abstain from...
But Senate President Bukola Saraki said that there are many judgments, court judgments, proving that what the Senate committee is doing by summoning the IGP is not wrong, regardless of the fact that the case, there are matters relating to the case in court. Why
don't the Senate President allow the courts, you know, in this matter to decide? Because if the IGP appears before the Senate, what happens to the issue, to the matter before the courts? Is the Senate now going to transform, not only from a lawmaking body, to a court of, you know, jurisdiction? You want to ask yourself, do they have that powers to become a court of law under the Constitution?
But don't they have the powers to investigate this matter, which the IGP has gone to court asking the court to, or praying the court to stop the Senate from investigating him?
Even as at that, I hope we're all aware that this same allegation that has been raised by distinguished Senator Misau has also made the federal government to take the senator to court.
And then you wonder why that is.
Well, you know, according to our law, the onus is on you to provide proof when you make allegations. One would have expected Senator Misau to have told the line of one Mr. Godwin Dabo, if you recollect, during the General Gowon's era, when he made allegations against Joseph Taka, and he deposed an affidavit. But so far, what Senator Misau has just been doing was that he has been making all these allegations without even an iota of evidence.
But he says he has evidence and he's ready to bring the evidence before a competent court of law. Will he be allowed, will he be given the opportunity to present his case?
Definitely, because you know what our law book states. If you allege somebody, and at the end of the day, it is proven that that allegation is false, you'll be charged for perjury.
Yes.
But in this case, even if the case gets to court, the court is an open place for the Nigerian people. We should implore the Senate to be patient, to be responsible, and allow the court to do its job.
Now, some Nigerians even wondered why of course, the police is part of the executive, and why the presidency didn't maybe set up a panel or an investigative panel to look into the allegations leveled against the IGP and the police commission, because some of these things could be traced, really.
Well,
but then somehow, like we said earlier,
the beauty
the
of
executive
it is
moving against Michelle.
The beauty of it is that, like we say, in the course of natural justice, you cannot be a judge in your own case. So what the executive has done is to take the matter out of its own purview, that you have made an allegation against a member of the executive, let us go to the neutral body, which is the judiciary.
In the former SGF's case, it wasn't so.
No, the allegations against the SGF was not the same as this one. The allegations against the SGF was about, a contract which he exercised in the discharge of his function. But now this allegation is about the Inspector General of Police allegedly collecting money from
companies,
and we expect
among
that
so many other allegations.
Yes, so many allegations.
Many allegations. So
we expect that.
Fingering so many prominent people.
Yes, in fact, even if we want to be serious enough, the Senate, members of the Senate, are members who have security orderlies attached to them.
Yes.
We should even ask them, how much has any one of them, can they provide us proof of how much they have paid to the police for
Well, maybe that should form part of the investigation that, is being, or hopefully will be carried out to really look at the issues that Senator Misau has raised. On the other hand, there seems to be a troubling trend that Nigerians are saying. It does seem that their principal, talking about the president, Mr. President, doesn't seem to have control over his men, over his officers, whether it's the CG of Customs that you're talking about, or Baru of the NNPC, or so many other, names that one could list. That is troubling in itself.
What do you mean by not
There
having...
seems to be some kind of impunity on their part.
In
when the Senate calls
respect?
you to come to answer questions,
yes,
you feel you have the confidence or the effrontery to say, look, I'm not going to show for whatever reason. And then you now seek the court to protect you from appearing before
you have a right as an individual, whether as a private citizen or as a public official, to seek the enforcement of your fundamental rights using the courts. So I think it is not that they are just sitting back. When the CGS of Customs declined the Senate invitation, he brought a court, matter regarding to that issue before the Senate. He doesn't say, "Oh, I'm not going to obey your summons," because the Senate has the constitutional right to summon any public official. But when that same matter for which the Senate is summoning you is before the court, even the Senate rules recognizes that fact that when the matter is before the court, it will be sub judice for the Senate to continue.
So what is playing out here? Is it ignorance? Is it ignorance of what the law says, of what the Constitution says? Because the Senate here is saying that they will even invoke Section 89C of the 1999 Constitution. So if that aspect of the Constitution allows the Senate to, forcefully, get someone who refuses to show up to actually show. Well, what does that is the Constitution against itself now?
No, it's not the Constitution against. At least just yesterday,
yes, you
saw members of the House of Representatives display crass ignorance about the constitutional provisions of the presentation of the budgets, because the Constitution does not give them the power to say no. Whatever budget the president is presenting before you, whether you explain 2015 budget or not, the Constitution gives you the right to allow him. And the Speaker had to explain to them. That tells you clearly that even the National Assembly now, I'm worried that these people need a lot of education on the constitutional rights.
Okay, let's look at some of the allegations. The one that is smearing the image of the wife of the president. Senator Michelle said that the IGP provided 2 jeeps to the First Lady, and then, because we are saying there is no evidence, that is just spewing out false allegations, as they are. And then the police came out, the spokesperson came out to say that, in fact, they didn't do that, but what they did was provide one Sienna bus and then another Hiace bus to the wife of the president.
Which they were bound by law to do.
Exactly, yes. And then, is it even by law they are bound to do it? But then, shrouding this in secrecy, first off, because we're in denial, and then coming out to say that, yes, they provided this. Would you say there is no smoke without fire?
No, you see, Senator Misao has his own information. Senator Misao made that allegation of 2 SUVs. Don't forget, the office of the wife of the president is entitled to security details.
Yes.
And when she's moving from one point to another, those security details will not go on foot. You know, there has to be logistics provided. And what the police has come out to say is that we provided these vehicles. Not even, you know, he mentioned SUV. The policeman said, no, it is not SUV. We provided 2 vehicles, a Sienna bus and maybe an Ayers bus, to the security details to aid their logistics. So it is very, very clear. They are not in breach because the police authorities do not have the right that when they are providing security details for any public official, that they should come and lay before
to make it known.
To make it known.
So it's not even a question of whether it's shrouded in secrecy.
No, it's not a matter of.
But that's a totally different matter. Yeah. That is not really what the subject of discourse is. But the IG is being invited. Anyway. Yes, part of the allegations, which he says it was not his intention to actually make it known. Yeah. That he was not even the one who you know, put it out there for public consumption. The IG is being invited to answer to issue of violence of 2016 and 2017 Appropriation Act and the oversight raised, of course, by Senator Issa Misao. Where does this case go from here? If the Senate is saying, look, if you don't show by next Tuesday, which is 7th of November, we will have to invoke, you know, an aspect of the Constitution that allows us to do that. And the IG, on the other hand, is saying, well, I'm protected by law not to appear before you because the case is already before a court. Well,
I hope before the next sitting of the Senate on this matter, that reason will prevail. That, you know, due to what we are doing now and some other commentaries, you know, in the public domain, they will see the rationality of their exercise that, no, it is not the right way to go. It's a slap on the Constitution.
Would it be reason guided by law? Would it be reason guided by law, reason guided by the Constitution, and not based on sentiments or personal issues that they may have, whether it's the Senate or the IG himself?
Well, I'm not a member of the Senate, and I cannot read their mind. But what I can tell you clearly as a citizen is that I understand the constitutional provisions. And, you know, I've even watched the Senate and read their deliberation on several occasions.
But looking at the NBS's report on the police tagging it as the most corrupt government institution in Nigeria, and then with all these allegations, yes, allegations, no proof yet, what would you have the government do at this time? EFCC is not talking about it. What should be the sensible thing to do with all this flying around?
Well, the truth of the matter is that the police is corrupt. You know, that's an allegation which even some of us will attest to it because of personal experiences. But you know, we must also recognize the fact that the rot of corruption permeates every strata of the society. And it starts from the home. What happens when a parent takes as I'm sitting down here, when my child was writing ordinary common entrance, do you know some teachers wanted us to pay to help us assist those little kids? And is that part of the police? And I was disturbed that if you destroy the future of these children at this tender age, somebody writing to qualify for entry into the secondary school, and you have to bribe to write
when someone that is at the top of a security organization in a country smeared in controversial allegations like this in a standard country, most of the time you see them resign, accuse themselves so that investigations should be carried out. Well, it's never so in Nigeria. Anyway.
No. The issue is that, you know, in Nigeria we have become a country that, you know, people can just wake up and raise all sorts of allegations just to smear you. I think what behoves on us all is when people raise allegations. Like in sane societies, we must demand proof. We are all living witnesses to experiences in this same country where in a marketplace, somebody will just shout, thief, thief, thief. And before you know it, people will start to go back. And at the end of, look at the case of the Alu 4. How do you explain that?
So many cases.
So many cases. So when people raise this type of allegations, we must be sane and responsible enough to say, gentleman or lady, can you please provide these evidences. And
well, the body of evidence
like you said, society is neck deep in corruption.
Definitely.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
That's a perception. That's a perception out there. And so it may not be unfair or, you know, it may not be fair to expect the police, the judiciary, and all the rest of them to be above board. We'll have to say thank you so much, Nelson Ekujimi, for joining us on the show.